Hello, class 9 children. Good morning. Welcome back. This is your yoga sir teaching you English language in today's routine through online class. Before I introduce today's topic, let me just remind you what we discussed before our unit test. Uh, we were discussing those directed exercises, and uh, before your unit test started, we had understood active and passive voice and the rules of changing active and passive voice. And today we'll discuss the very important and of course the last subject to discuss today, and this is direct and indirect speech, right? So this is one of the most important chapters we have in English grammar, right? And from here, uh, one question or more than one question, right, is or are definitely going to come in your paper. Okay, so be very careful when the chapter is being explained to you. So today's topic is direct and indirect speech, which is also called narration change, right? The same name is given for direct and indirect speech. Okay, we also call it narration change. That means narration is of two types. One is direct and the other is indirect. Or speech is of two types. One is direct and the other is indirect. Now, before we come to discuss direct and indirect speech, we need to know the background of this chapter. So, when we talk about the background of this chapter, uh, we should know the three persons in English grammar, right? And I'm sure that you all are well aware of the three persons in English grammar because this is done in your previous classes also, right? So, anyway, let's have a revision in three persons in English grammar to arrive into our today's topic, direct and indirect speech or narration change. So the three persons in English grammar are first person, second person, and third person, right? So first person is a speaker, right? The one who is generally speaking is a first person. Okay, so take an example. Right now I'm speaking to you, so I'm the first person, right? Second person is a listener to the first person, right? So who is the second person? A second person is a listener to the first person, right? So you are listening to me, right? So you are the second person now, and I am the first person. So you are listening to me, right? Now, third person. Third person is a listener to the second person who speaks about the first person. Now, who is the third person? Third person is a listener to the second person who speaks about the first person. So I hope you understood. So let's again uh, make it simple to understand. So as I told you that first person is consider I am now. I am teaching you, right? So I am telling you something. So I am the first person. You are listening to me, right? So you are the second person, right? And when you go or when you tell your parents that what we discussed today, right? Your parents are the listener to you. So that means your parents are the third person, right? And you are speaking about me, right? What I taught you today, right? So you're talking about the first person who is me here, who is I'm here, right? So, okay, so these are the three persons in grammar, right? Now, when first person speaks to the second person, it is a direct speech, right? It is a direct speech. And when second person speaks to the third person about the first person is indirect speech. So this is a simple logic to understand what is direct and indirect speech, right? Or narration change. So three persons in English grammar, right, is very important to understand the chapter direct and indirect speech. So when the first person speaks to the second person, it is a direct speech. When the second person speaks to the third person about the first person is indirect speech, right? But what is a direct speech and what is an indirect speech, right? Do not write these as your answer. When first person speaks to the second person is direct speech, second person speaks to the third person about the first person is an indirect speech. So don't write this as your answer, right? Because uh, this is only the background of the chapter we have understood. Now we come to know what is direct speech. Right, so let's now try to understand what is direct speech. When we quote the actual words of the speaker, it is called direct speech. Now, what is quote? Quote means to write within quotation, inverted commas. It's called quotation, right? So, when we quote the actual words of the speaker, it is called direct speech. Actual words means whatever the speaker has said, whatever the speaker has spoken, we write exactly the same, right? Under quotation, right? So, such sentence is called direct speech. Okay, now take an example. Anjali said, comma, double quote opens, I am hungry, full stop, quotation close. Right? So mind you, it is first full stop and then quotation close. It's not that first quotation close and then full stop. That will be incorrect in grammar. First full stop and then outside quotation close. Right? So Anjali said, I am hungry. Right? So here Anjali is the speaker. Right? So is the speaker here? Anjali. Right? What did Anjali say? I am hungry. Right? So I am hungry, right, are the words spoken by Anjali, okay, who is the speaker here, right? So I am hungry, right, are the actual words of the speaker, who is Anjali here, right? So because this is within quotation, right, because these words are spoken by Anjali and nobody else, so these are her actual words. So actual words are within quotation. Okay, so when we quote the actual words of the speaker, right, it is called direct speech. So got it? So now what is said here? Right, here said is RV. RV means reporting verb. Right, said, told, begged, questioned, uh, then pleaded, asked, right, told. These all words are reporting verbs. Okay, so here speaker, reporting verb, and actual words of the speaker. We got who is the speaker here? Anjali. Right, now we come to know indirect speech. When we do not quote the actual words of the speaker but rather report, it is called indirect speech. Now you see, we do not quote. Now in this indirect speech, we don't quote. Quote means we are not using inverted commas. We are not writing the actual words of the speaker within quotation. Right? So when we do not quote the actual words of the speaker, but we report. Right? He said that, she said that, they said that, we report. Right? It is called indirect speech. So take an example. Right, example, let's choose the same direct speech. Anjali said, I am hungry. Let's change it into indirect. Anjali said that she was hungry. Right, so this is indirect speech. Anjali said that she was hungry. Right, so look at the changes that we got in indirect speech. Right, we have used that conjunction. I became she, am became was. Right, so these are the changes we got. We have seen the change in the tense as well, right? So Anjali said that she was hungry. So these are indirect speech. We have not used quotations. We have not used inverted commas because this is an indirect speech, right? We are only reporting that Anjali said what? That she was hungry, right? So when these definitions are understood, direct and indirect speech, now let us understand rules of changing direct to indirect speech. Now this is very, very important for you to understand. So once you understand this, then every question in this chapter is easy for you to get the answer. Now see, rules of changing direct to indirect speech or vice versa, indirect to direct speech, because the question may be asked in any ways, right? You may be given direct to make it indirect, or you may be given indirect to make it direct. So both the ways the questions are possible. So you need to understand both the sides or both the ways. So rules of changing direct to indirect speech or vice versa, right? The first rule is remove inverted commas, right? So these inverted commas are to be removed from your indirect speech, and the comma, which comma, that separates the reporting verb RV reporting verb with the actual words of the speaker, right? So this is the first change that you will make it while changing direct to indirect. So remove inverted commas and also remove a comma. But which comma are you removing? That comma that separates the reporting verb with the actual words of the speaker. Now try to understand with the example. See, Sony said, comma, double quote opens, I want to dance, full stop, quotation close. Right? Now change into indirect. Right? Sony said that she wanted to dance. Okay, Sony said that she wanted to dance. Right? Now see here, so in indirect speech we have not used inverted commas, so inverted commas are removed, and we have also removed a comma, this comma, right? Because this comma is separating reporting verb with the actual words of the speaker. Right? So this comma has separated said, which is the reporting verb, right, with I want to dance is the actual words of Sony. Right? So this comma is also removed. So in this sentence we have not used comma, right? We have not used inverted comma. Right? This is the first change we have in direct to indirect. Now move on to the next one, if that is understood. Use conjunction that. Right? So conjunction that must be used. But a question comes here, are we using that in all direct to indirect, right, speeches? Now what is your answer? Right? It says no. We are not using that in all the cases. That means in some cases we are not using that. Now in what some cases we are not using that, that is what we have to understand. Right? So we'll learn here omission of that. Omission of that means removing of that, where we are removing that. It depends on three things. Right? So removing that depends on three things. There are three things that we should remember. Right? uh, if we are to use that or not. Okay, now the first thing is what? A, when there is WH word, omit that. Okay, so the first and foremost is when there is WH word. Now what is WH word in which we are not using that? Right, now you need to know what is WH word. So WH word, right, is all question words are called WH word. Right, so all question words are called WH word. So that means those words which are used to frame questions, they are called WH words, like what, when, why, where, whose, which, whom, uh, who, how, etc. These all are called WH words, because you see every word has started with WH, 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 WH. So they are called WH words in English grammar. Right? So when there is a question word used, right, in the actual words of the speaker, do not use that. So take an example. Abhirup said to Karthik. Abhirup said to Karthik, comma, double quote opens, what are you writing? Question mark, quotation close. Here again you take a note. First question mark and then quotation close. It's not that quotation close earlier and then question mark later. That is wrong grammar. Right? First question mark, you should end with a question mark, and outside the question mark, right, quotation close. Right? Now see, Abhirup said to Karthik, what are you writing? Now what is what here? Here what is WH word? Right, is a question word. Now when there is a question word, do not use that's it. Right, so omit that's it. So Abhirup asked, because here Abhirup is asking Karthik, what are you writing? So Abhirup asked Karthik what he was writing. So we have not used the word that. Abhirup asked Karthik that what he was writing would be wrong, because we have question word what here. So when there is WH word, right, do not use that. So this is the first case where we have learned the omission of that. Now the second case, see, when there is an imperative sentence, omit that. Right, when there is an imperative sentence, omit that. Now what is imperative sentence? We have already done, right, when we did active and passive voice, or when we did sentences at the same time. Now see, so when there is an imperative sentence, omit that. Right, so imperative sentence, right, is of two types: positive imperative sentence, negative imperative sentence. Right, now try to understand the difference between these. Okay, the teacher said to us, comma, double quote opens, listen to me quietly, full stop, quotation close. Now how this will change? The teacher told us to listen to him or her quietly, because the teacher is here common noun. So teacher can be he, can be she. So we have taken any one of these two. The teacher told us to listen to him or her quietly. This is positive imperative sentence because we have no use of not. listen to me quietly, right? It's positive imperative sentence. He's advising us, suggesting us, at the same time telling us that we should listen to the teacher, right? So the teacher told us to listen to him or her quietly. So in what framing did we get the answer? We got the answer in the use of infinitive, right? To plus verb is infinitive, right? So to plus verb is infinitive. So when there is positive imperative sentence, imperative sentence, we get the answer with the use of infinitive. To plus verb is called infinitive in English grammar. It is one kind of verb, right? To go, to shout, to read, to write, to dance, to laugh. These all are the examples of infinitives, right? So the teacher told us to listen to him or her quietly. Now see the negative imperative sentence. The teacher said to us, don't make a noise. Now don't, not is used here, so it is negative, right? So the teacher said to us, don't make a noise. Okay, so what will be the answer framing? The teacher told us not to make a noise. So when there is negative imperative sentence, we get the answer using not plus to plus verb, right? So we get the answer not plus to plus verb, right? Here infinitive is to plus verb is infinitive, right? So when there is negative imperative sentence, we get the answer in the use of not plus to plus verb. So the teacher told us not to make a noise. However, this answer can also be framed like this: the teacher forbade us. Forbid means not to allow, right? Not to permit. The teacher forbade us from making a noise, right? If you write this answer in this way, this is also correct, right? But the simple would be this: the teacher told us not to make a noise, right? So hope you understood. So these are the two uh, reasons and examples where we have understood omission of that. Now the third case, see. Now the third case, when there is an auxiliary verb starting the actual word of the speaker, omit that. Starting the actual words of the speaker, omit the use of that. Now you see, right? So what does the third reason say? When there is an auxiliary verb. Now what is an auxiliary verb? We have also discussed this one in active and passive voice. There are two types we saw, right? Primary auxiliary and modal auxiliary, right? So when there is an auxiliary verb, but mind you, this auxiliary verb should start the actual words of the speaker, only then we can omit that. Take an example. Poonam said to Neha, comma, double quote opens, are you writing the assignments, question mark, quotation close. Here are, right? Are is an auxiliary verb and it is starting the actual words of the speaker. Actual word of the speaker is within quotation, right? And this is the beginning of it. Okay, so when there is an auxiliary verb starting the actual words of the speaker, right, do not use that. So how the answer will be? Poonam asks Neha if or whether. Whether means if means whether, right? She was writing the assignment. Whether she was writing the assignment, right? So Poonam asked Neha if or whether she was writing the assignment, right? So see, you can either use if or use whether, any one of the two. So when there is an auxiliary verb starting the actual words of the speaker, right, use if or whether, right? This is how we frame the answer. Okay, and we have not used that. Poonam asked Neha that if or whether she was writing the assignment should be wrong, because we are told by the rule that we should not use that when there is an auxiliary verb starting the actual words of the speaker. Okay, now move on to the next rule now. So hope these three reasons you have understood where we are not using that. Leaving these three reasons, we are all using uh, that in the indirect speech. Now let's move on to the next. Change of tense. Change the tense. Right. Normally present tense changes to past. This is what we know. Right. Present tense changes to past, and there is more of the things that you should understand. The continuous will become the past continuous, likewise, right? The tense changes, but right, let us understand where the tense will not change, right? But the tense will remain unchanged if there is a universal through sentence, right? Now what does it say? So every uh, present tense in direct speech will not become past in the indirect speech. There are certain limitations, right? And what is the limitation? When the tense will remain unchanged, there is a universal true sentence, right? That means when there is a universal true sentence, the tense will remain same. The tense will remain as it is. Okay, so present tense will remain present tense. It will not change into past. Take an example. The teacher said, the sun rises in the east. The teacher said, the sun rises in the east. How this change? How this will change? The teacher said that the sun rises in the east. Now you see. Now don't get confused with the word that, because whatever with that we have already got over. Now we are using that. The teacher said that the sun rises in the east. So here rises remain rises. It did not become rose, right? Because yesterday there was the sunrise, today there is a sunrise, tomorrow again there will be a sunrise. So this is a universal truth sentence, right? Universal truth sentence means which occurs, right, in a regular routine, right, which okay takes place regularly, right? So the sunrise was yesterday, sunrise is today, sunrise will be tomorrow, right? So in such universal truth sentence, the tense will remain same. Present tense will remain present tense. It will not change into past. Hope you understood this. Now move on to the next rule of changing direct and indirect. Change in nearness to time and place. That means whenever there is nearness to time and place, the word will change. Right? Time will change, place will also change. Now take an example, direct speech, indirect speech. Right? There are more of it. I have just taken a few for you to make you understand. In your textbook you can see more and then write when you are writing it in your copy. Here will become there. Now will become then. Ago will become before. Tomorrow will become the next day. Yesterday will become the previous day or the day before. Today will become that day. This will become that. These will become those. So these are all the changes that you need to make while changing direct to indirect. They needed to be changed. If you don't change this, then certain marks will get deducted from your answer. Right? So this is a must that you need to bring those changes. Right? So there are few more given in your grammar book, right? In your total English book, right? So see more and then continue. Write few more of them in your work. So this is the next change we have. So time will change, place will also change. Here is a place, there it will become there. Now is time, it will become then, right? Ago is time, it will become before, right? So these all changes will take place indirect to indirect. Now next, rule number 5, use pronoun according to the subject. So you need to use pronoun according to the subject. So that means the subject will decide what pronoun are you using. Okay, so this is also a change indirect to indirect. So now see, Mohan said to Raju, I want to sing. Right? Mohan said to Raju, I want to sing. Who is I here? I is Mohan. Right? I is okay. Who? Mohan here. Because it's Mohan who is telling. Mohan is the speaker. Raju is listener. Right? So Mohan said to Raju, I want to sing. So I is Mohan. So Mohan told Raju, because said to, there is an object also. When there is an object, said will become told. When there is no object, said will become or said will remain said. So Mohan told Raju that he. Since I is for Mohan, Mohan is a masculine gender. So we have used the word he as pronoun. He wanted to sing. Right? We have also changed the tense. Want became wanted. So Mohan told Raju that he wanted to sing. So you got it? Right? I became he. Just because the pronoun is changed according to the subject. Here subject, right? Mohan is a masculine subject. So we have changed I into he. Now the last one. When there is an exclamatory sentence, provide a feeling. Right? Now what does it say? When there is an exclamatory sentence. Now what is an exclamatory sentence? This also we have discussed in sentence. Right? When we talked about sentence. So exclamatory sentence, right? We have to provide a feeling when there's an exclamatory sentence. Take an example now. The boys said, comma, double quote opens, hurrah or hooray, exclamation mark. We have won the match. Full stop, quotation close. So since here hurrah or hooray, we have an exclamation mark used, right? So this is an exclamatory sentence, right? And how this will change into indirect? The boys exclaimed joyfully that they had won the match. The boys exclaimed joyfully. Exclaimed joyfully is the feeling given to the word hurrah, right? So hurrah is an interjection. So what is hurrah here? Interjection. So interjection should not be repeated in your answer. In place of interjection, we provide a feeling. What feeling is it? So hurrah is a feeling of happiness, is a feeling of joy, right? So we have given the feeling here. The boys exclaimed joyfully, or the boys exclaimed with joy. That also you can write that they had won the match, right? So this is what is a change. So there are 1 to 6 rules of changing direct to indirect, right? And if indirect to direct is asked, then all rules will get reversed, right? Because in both the ways the questions may be asked to you, right, to trick you, right? In any ways the question may be asked, uh, you are to judge it and then give the correct response to what is asked, right? Okay, so this is what we have understood the chapter direct and indirect speech, or it is also called narration change. Sometimes within bracket you will also be asked change the narration. So when it is said change the narration, then it's a tricky question for you. You have to see the question whether it is direct or indirect, and accordingly you have to change. When it is direct given, you have to make it indirect, right? Then it's very simple. However, indirect speech is also called reported speech. Since we report, so it is also called reported speech. So you may be asked in any way, right? Direct is given, you are asked to make indirect, you are asked to make reported, right? Or sometimes it is also said change the narration, right? So this is what is the chapter direct in indirect speech. Hope you understood this. This is the most important chapter you have. 1 or 2 questions are definitely going to be asked in your paper, right? And this will come in your dues directed, right? So it will be a 1 mark, or it will be of if there are 2 questions, that means okay there would be 2 marks per the questions. So you must be able to answer, right? So with this we have finished uh, our portion DS directed, right? So here we have understood 18, 19. Today's one was the 19th exercise in DS directed. We have understood. Okay, so now in next time in your grammar language class we'll see prepositions, right? So you'll get some questions on it as per your homework, right? So you'll be working this in your exercise note. Thank you very much.